I'll do a quick intro. So, hey.
Just warming up.
Hello, everyone at Gatsby Camp. Kyle and I wanted to get together real quick, and we'll talk about, a lot of things that you may be interested in. So, ultimately, just kind of want to have a quick little quote-unquote fireside chat at Gatsby Camp, where
Couchside chat.
where Kyle and I will kind of pick each other's brains, and we'll kind of see what shakes out. So, with that said, I guess Kyle, first question is, what are you most excited about in Gatsby right now?
Wow, a lot. The team's been doing a lot of great work, and yeah, I mean, top of mind, definitely things at the conference is, functions, e-commerce. The new Shopify plugin is just super fast. Very excited. Like, even very large sites, we're seeing, second build times for data changes.
Mm-hmm.
And, that just changes everything. Like, you have the sort of benefits of completely static, deployed to the edge CDN, type experience, but
Mm-hmm.
like updating your data, things go live immediately, and that's kind of a game changer when it comes to Gatsby.
For sure.
And functions, I've just been playing a lot with functions, and they're just super fun. Like, you can just do little back-end stuff on the fly, and the dev experience is really great. The deployment story is really great. I've deployed Node.js APIs in the past, and it's kind of a pain, setting everything up. And now you just, it's just a function that, you just pop it to a folder and off it goes. So that's
Yeah, me too. I was earlier telling Kyle, I have my wedding website. Many of you have seen. It will no longer be demoed because maybe one day I'll get married. But before Gatsby Functions, I had a big old kind of like Terraform configuration with like 8 Terraform files. It was kind of fun. Ultimately I learned a new skill. But with Gatsby Functions, I don't really need to have that skill. I kind of just create a simple API folder, add a JavaScript file, and then in minutes I have like a version controlled, fast, seamless, serverless function that scales to my wedding website traffic, but of course, whatever traffic you need. So that's just amazing to be able to like remove code, tons of code, and then get a lot more simpler solution. The other thing I really like too, like specifically about Gatsby and e-commerce, is there's a tweet from Kyle, and we'll share it after this, where you're just clicking through the basically e-commerce starter that we built with Shopify. And one of the things that like still brings me most joy is when like users tweet something like, "Do you see how fast this Gatsby site was?" Or like you just click through and it just feels fast. And so that's why I think Gatsby and e-commerce, and particularly like what we're doing with Shopify, are just super exciting because again, the web should be fast, and ultimately today like our value prop of fast in every way that matters, I think is especially true for e-commerce. So can't wait to see what you'll build. Can't wait to see what your users will think of your freaky fast site. And we're just stoked to see all the things that everyone's going to be building.
Yeah. So next question, what are some cool use cases you could see people do with functions?
Yeah, the short answer is it feels like you can kind of do whatever you want. So as you were saying earlier, it's like it's kind of like, what do I do with all this power? What do I do with all this? Like, I feel like a wizard. So I think the classic ones that like I go to are, actually maybe we can talk about something we did a couple weeks ago. So we did a kind of like internal function party of sorts, and just building a bunch of really cool hackathon, building a bunch of really cool things with functions. And probably my favorite one, and I'm a little annoyed because it won the contest, was this one around like pup snuggling, and like totally contrived artificial example, but it basically used every third-party API, every kind of like SaaS product you can imagine. It used Stripe, it used Calendly. I don't even know what else it used, but Google Auth. And like what it really showed is that you can create something like really sophisticated really quickly, because like we actually artificially contrived a 4-hour time box where basically 4 hours to build something cool, and like that's pretty sophisticated and pretty cool. And ultimately, again, it's like bringing developers and marketers together. It's like it gives control back to the developer to like build something amazing. So those are some kind of high level things. What about you?
Yeah, well, just like my team, actually, we did something that was pretty fun too, in that internal thing where we built a kind of a support chatbot that it's a Gatsby plugin, and you drop into a site and it puts up a little chatbot, and then when you type in messages, it sends it through a function to Slack. There's like a Slack channel, and then like messages from users will pop in there, and then all you have to do is respond to the thread, and then those will get sent back to that. And it's just like two functions talking back and forth to each other. And it was pretty simple to put together. It's like it was really fun to do. But yeah, like you're saying, like functions are just sort of this like you almost feel like a wizard, because it's just really, really simple to try out something and get it working and deploy it. So a couple community things I hear from people in the community that they were doing recently. It's like one person was like, oh, like I needed to get some information from another website into their Gatsby site. The other website didn't have an API, but they built a function using Cheerio, which is like a really nice sort of jQuery-esque scraper. And then, so they just run the function, scrape some data, return it, bam, done. Probably took them like 30 minutes. Another person, they have like a Google spreadsheet that has like pricing information, and they want to be able to pull it in sort of dynamically, some sort of interactive widget thing on their site. So again, they create a function, grab the data from Google spreadsheet, and then then off it goes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's really nice.
For sure. Yeah. We haven't done it yet, but I'm also super excited to tap into Notion's API to do some cool internal tools. But again, what you kind of see with functions is that whether it's automating something that was manual, whether it's putting a production grade scalable infrastructure in place for your company website, and kind of everything in between. Functions work for what you need. So super excited with functions.
Yeah, most websites, most Gatsby websites, they start static, but then as things sort of progress, you kind of get these little feature requests oh, could we do this, could we do that, and then you just start accumulating little bits of backend to support those. And Gatsby functions work perfectly because they're just a super simple backend that works perfectly with your Gatsby site, and it makes handling these little dynamic kind of feature requests pretty simple.
Sure. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that one of the things that I enjoy most is seeing people share their Gatsby sites in the wild. So don't know, Kyle, if you've seen any that you've liked most recently, but maybe what are some of your favorite sites built with Gatsby, and then what do you like most about them?
Yeah, that's a tough question. There's a lot of great Gatsby sites, and every day there's new ones coming across my desk, virtual desk. But some that come to mind.
That's hard. There's so many ideas, and it's hard to pick one.
Yeah. Do you have one in mind?
I was thinking as I was asking it, my go-to answer, is GatsbyChamp.com. Because ultimately it's such a Frankenstein of a website that it's literally pulling data from every data source under the sun. I think there's some relics of Airtable in there. There's Contentful.
Yeah, Contentful, Airtable, GitHub, Markdown, Docs, WordPress. Yeah, what else? Yeah, so at least 6. Oh, NPM.
Yeah, and NPM.
Yeah, because all the plugin pages are pulled straight from NPM's API.
Yeah.
So that's 7 or 8 different sources, and it's still super fast to build.
Still fast. Fast to build, fast to use for the user.
Yeah. Kind of shows the power of just being able to pull from all these different places really easily, just using plugins. And GraphQL layered kind of gives it. It's not weird to develop on because you're just it's all the same. It's React components, GraphQL APIs, or GraphQL queries, and it works. It's great.
Yeah, but lots of new ones on Twitter. I think are pretty great. Every day, every week, there's someone building a new site. But what I've liked most is seeing some of the early adopters for e-commerce over the past couple months, where you'll see someone share a tweet or a retweet or a customer feedback where it's oh my gosh, what happened? What'd you do? And it's well, they're using Gatsby for this new site. So as you've kind of seen earlier, some of the great things from some of the agencies speaking today are also just really great sites that we are super proud that they're building with Gatsby. Cool.
So e-commerce, big theme of this camp. What about e-commerce, and particularly e-commerce Gatsby? What excites you?
I think it's the, as kind of Kyle and I both talked about, it's kind of the sliding scale or spectrum from static to dynamic. And for us, the kind of core value prop of Gatsby is speed. You choose Gatsby because it enables you, the developer, to like build your site more quickly. It enables the marketer to like have a site that performs well, that lowers the bounce rate. So however, like we haven't always scaled to what we needed to, and so for us to see that we have this great first class source plugin with Shopify, and that you can start to kind of like shift the scale of like the kinds of sites that you can build with Gatsby and Gatsby Cloud. It's like most e-commerce sites should ultimately be built with Gatsby, and so for us, we're really excited to see that kind of position land, and for all of you to keep using Gatsby for e-commerce. So I think it's just a great story. It's you can get a pretty sophisticated, fast site pretty quickly with our source plugin ecosystem, notably the Shopify plugin. You can tap into the power of functions to do out of stock notices or send an email to your end users. Like ultimately, like use cases are again pretty infinite. But I think for me at least today, it's just showing how Gatsby isn't just myopically focused on static sites. Like sites, all kinds of sites can be built with Gatsby, and so for us, it's just moving the scale towards more of these kinds of use cases. It's just awesome to see.
It's really fun to see just how amazing the different e-commerce sites built on Gatsby are. Just sort of in general, in e-commerce in general, it's like I don't like shopping, so I'm a big fan of e-commerce in general, and particularly I think how the internet is. Anybody can put up a site, anybody can put up a store, and just the last 5 to 10 years, just in this huge explosion of new brands, new products, new companies, that's enabled by e-commerce on the web, and it's great. Like I think we're all benefiting from that. Like we can buy cool new things that are really useful things that just weren't possible before, and I think e-commerce is the future. It's the present, and it's even more so the future. And it's like a great world of great shopping experiences from the comfort of our PJs on our closet and or in our couches. It's a great program.
For sure. Yeah, it's I've told Kyle before that I didn't think ads worked on me, but Instagram has definitely worked on me. And it feels like every day, I click an Instagram ad or something, and it's like, oh, what's powering the site? Shopify checkout. And so I think in the same way that kind of like the ease of use of Shopify kind of transforming e-commerce and enabling like a super seamless checkout experience, like it's amazing. I can buy a product too quickly. Some would argue, like Apple Pay and that kind of thing. I think that Gatsby is transforming, the end user experience and like how truly like kind of great it can be to like browse an e-commerce application. So from seeing the product, from navigating, from seeing the carousel to buying, I think it's just a really fast, seamless experience that Gatsby fits quite well in.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the things that we've kind of mentioned like many times, and the theme of many of these kind of conferences or mini conferences is speed and performance. So Kyle, I'm curious, you're kind of a performance expert. How do you measure and improve performance, and like how do you keep performance top of mind when you're using Gatsby?
Yeah, so everyone knows that faster websites have all sorts of benefits. Like they get more users, you get higher conversions. Google is now factoring performance of your site into kind of the rankings for searches. So it's a big deal, and it's become an even bigger deal over time. And that's one of the main goals of Gatsby, is to like give you a great developer experience and sort of out of the box generate really fast sites. And like the static parts is a big part of that. The React client-side navigation is a big part of that. So like clicking around, our image component is a huge part of that, because like images, like highly optimized, fast-loading images is a big part of kind of the perception of like how fast the site is. And so and I think we've succeeded to a large extent. Like a lot of people tell us that their Gatsby site is gets like tons of comments from people just like asking them like, what did you do to make that site so fast? And it's like sort of like feels like a local, it's like it feels like a sort of a local desktop application or something. You're just clicking around and everything's instantaneous. That being said, like while the Gatsby framework does a lot to make your site fast out of the box, it's still possible to to make it slow. And there's a variety of ways that can happen, but most commonly the two biggest problems that people run into is, loading too much JavaScript. So, there's millions of packages on NPM, of JavaScript packages on NPM, and like sometimes you're just trying to solve a problem, you install something, you import it, and you deploy it, and oops, like that happened to be like a half megabyte of JavaScript or something like that. And so now every page that JavaScript's on gets a lot slower. In the same way, there's a lot of sort of marketing scripts, analytics or other type stuff that your YouTube scripts you're pulling in, and these sort of third-party scripts can also add a lot of weight to the page, and that slows down sort of the boot up of your site, because the initial paint is fast because that's just loading static HTML. But then subsequent loading of like the JavaScript is kind of bogged down because of maybe hundreds of kilobytes or even megabytes of JavaScript that you're pulling in. And so the best way to improve that is to kind of first you got to measure what's happening, and then identify things that you can do to improve it. And so the best tool to measure your site's performance is Lighthouse. And Gatsby Cloud, we actually run Lighthouse against every build of your site. And so when you're putting up PRs, you can instantly sort of see kind of like a performance score for the site. So that's a good way to kind of keep a running track of it. It's like you can double check that when you put up a PR that you don't kind of hurt the performance of your site in any way. Yep. And so anyway, so looking at, so like, let's say you discover that your site does have some problems. First is, you just run Lighthouse, and it'll kind of tell you where you can look, and generally speaking, it'll be JavaScript is generally the problem. And then at that point, you can sort of like do an audit. You're just like, okay, how many third-party scripts are we pulling, and like how big are they? Like how much JavaScript is being loaded on that page? And then in the Gatsby ecosystem, there's been a number of plugins to sort of do analysis of these different things. So there's one, the bundle analyzer, that you can like look at all your different sort of routes and then see how much JavaScript and like, or see which modules, I guess, are part of that. And that'll allow you to identify like any unusually large ones that may be optional or maybe can be swapped out for something smaller. And then, and then you just start making iterative improvements and put up PRs with changes and see how, the PR is hopefully better than that, and then continue to improve.
Sure. Yeah. Basically, it's not always easy, but with Gatsby and Gatsby Cloud, you get a good foundation. One of the phrases I like most from who knows who is you can only improve what you can measure. And so I think that's a really important thing, like keeping performance as part of your day-to-day processes, procedures, keeping at the PR level, and then like leveraging Gatsby Cloud to get those reports so you can see, oh crap, I just dropped our perf score by 20 points by adding these 6 scripts. It's like, don't merge this PR.
Yeah.
So it's really important to keep it at the forefront.
Yeah. And we've done some webinars recently too that kind of did real deep dives on just different steps you can take. So encourage you to look at those.
For sure. So Kyle, kind of similar, like it's awesome having these kind of conferences, these GatsbyCamp Fireside chats, but sometimes you miss something that kind of flew under the radar that isn't like a flagship feature, but that really improves our users' quality of lives or developer quality of life. So what's something that we didn't really talk about today that you're especially proud of or interested in? And talk about a little bit about it.
One thing that one idea around like product development engineering is there's always like these sort of like flag like kind of big changes that everyone's like, ooh, exciting. But the bulk of kind of the experience, the bulk of like creating a great experience for either the developer experience or product experience and so forth, is just lots of small iterative improvements. There's a great phrase for this, is sort of like the unreasonable effectiveness of small optimizations. That's like 5% improvement here, 3% improvement there, 10% improvement there. You're not going to notice any one of those individually, but aggregate, you kind of like look away for a few months and like try it again. You're like, wow, this is like so much better. And there's nothing you can really pinpoint as like causing that, but it just sort of feels a lot better. And and it's just like we have this like 2-week release cycle, and every 2 weeks, there's kind of build performance improvements going out. There's like little bugs that are being fixed.
Mm-hmm.
There's work being done on source plugins to make them more robust, to make previews faster, to make delta sourcing faster. We're always pushing the envelope in a bunch of different directions, just to make things faster, more reliable, more robust.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels really good to we hear bug reports come in and we fix it and they're like, yay, I don't have bugs anymore. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
And more people that just have a 100% successful experience from the get-go. And that comes from just tons of people's work on the framework, on plugins, work we're doing in Gatsby Cloud. Anyways, that's very exciting just to see people having really great experiences.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. And then I think Kyle's been working a little bit on like the Drupal source plugin in particular,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just been like every week, you can kind of see improvements week over week to the plugins. And like one of the slides I had earlier that I think is just so true is like just kind of like market improvement in your experience is like an npm install away.
Mm-hmm.
It's a plugin upgrading Gatsby.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite things to do is kind of like upgrade an older project using Gatsby.
Yeah.
That I built 6 months ago, 9 months ago, and like update to the latest and greatest, and it's like, wow, things have like truly improved. It's faster, it feels better, more helpful errors, more helpful kind of information that like, one by one, these don't amount to much, but after 100 of these kinds of improvements that you get over like, every week, every month, every year, it really just adds up. So.
Yeah, like just simple example like my blog. It's like nothing special. It's some markdown files, a few page components and so forth. I think like say 6 months, a year ago, a warm build took like 25-30 seconds, and now most recently with sort of a soon to be released improvement to Webpack caching, it's like a warm build's like 7 seconds, and 30 seconds, it was fine. Like I wasn't really complaining. It's not something you really think about, but like, you always prefer 7 seconds over 30 seconds. And the thing is, like for a small site, like whatever, it was fine before. But where the stuff really comes, I think it's really fun and interesting, is that there's just lots of sites that were kind of, it's like 30 seconds for a large site might be, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes even.
Yep.
And those are now, a minute, 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And so we're taking sites that were a little peripheral before, but are now quite pleasant to kind of operate.
Sure.
And that's exciting.
Definitely.
So the site, or this conference camp, whatever it is, sites, conferences, camps. We talked a lot about functions, e-commerce, Gatsby, dynamic, etc. So what do you see as kind of the future of static and dynamic in Gatsby?
It's a good question. So we've been talking about this a lot recently. Where kind of the purely dynamic model of the web. This was the way the web used to be built. You always needed a server. You run into issues. Your site's literally down because you got too much traffic. So that's like pure dynamic. And then on the other hand, you have like pure static. Put a CDN in front of it, S3 bucket, Gatsby Cloud. With Fastly. And ultimately, what we've tended to see and like find over the last couple months and years is that oftentimes, like actually most of the time, static isn't enough. And so what tends to happen is you get new use cases, you get someone like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if, and like, hey, let's add a form here, or like we really want to do this campaign, but we we need to kind of make it like highly scalable. So for us, what we see with Gatsby and what I see with Gatsby is that it's kind of like shifting left, and Gatsby is moving what was previously like only static to like more dynamic. And so we've ultimately told, I think, a fairly compelling story for the last like year or two. It's like it's just React. You can invoke REST APIs, you can invoke serverless functions, and what we're really doing is we're incorporating it all like under the Gatsby Cloud, under the Gatsby umbrella, to where you can be as dynamic as you want, as dynamic as you need. And so that's at least how I keep seeing the trajectory of Gatsby. We're ever shifting left to what the evolving needs of teams using Gatsby are, and we're not done. So more to do. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah. I mean, my our real goal with Gatsby is just that you can create incredible user experiences but do it in a way that just, the experience for developers, experience for marketers is it's simple. Like it's not weird or hard to build these things. And Gatsby deploying as a static website was always like a big part of that ambition, because like static is simple. You don't have to think about scaling. You don't have to think about running. I mean, we hear all the time people who kind of like migrate a site to Gatsby, and they're like, I can throw away my pager. Like, I don't have to worry about my site going down or something weird going on or whatever. Like, you just don't think about, the running site anymore, because it's so simple. Once it's a static assets deployed to CDN. And that's what I guess I'm really excited about functions is, of course, most sites need something dynamic. It could be as simple as, submitting a contact form, but and kind of scale it from there. But almost every site does need some sort of dynamic part to it. And, functions, I love it just because it makes sort of adding dynamic features to your site as simple as, the static part of Gatsby. A function, it can be literally like 3 lines of JavaScript, and it's version controlled along with the rest of your site. It's built and deployed along with the rest of your site. You get deployed previews. It's like the same great developer experience, but also the same great sort of like operational, story as the rest of Gatsby. You don't have to set up infrastructure. You don't have to worry about scaling it. A million people all of a sudden want to evoke your function, like no big deal. Gatsby Cloud's function, managed function service can handle that just fine. So it's like, it's simple, it's reliable, it's fast, and that's the future. It's like, the cloud serverless is the future. It's just taking all of these like really painful parts of building a site that don't actually matter. You're not paid. You're paid to create a great user experience. That's where it comes from. Everything else is overhead. If you have to worry about running servers, if you have to worry about, like monitoring traffic and deploying, and tweaking like how much capacity you have to like serve, all that stuff is just overhead around creating a great service. And the more that can be stripped away, and you can just focus on like, improving design, shipping new features, improving existing features, talking to customers, that's what adds value. And that's what we're here for.
For sure. Yeah, I think one of the things that you said really echoes with me, which is like teams choose Gatsby to sleep soundly at night and deliver like an excellent user experience. Like, no one wants page. No one wants to go, SSH into this like backend server to be like, what is going on here? Like ultimately, like these kinds of problems don't need to be hard. And so I think that's kind of the sliding scale of making, harder and harder problems seem easy. And that's what Gatsby and Gatsby Cloud is really doing. Yeah. So one last question for Kyle. So we've talked about like a good amount of things today. We've launched some great things like functions, like e-commerce. But if you had to pick one thing for everyone to like walk away with, go apply, what would that thing be and why?
Yeah, I would say functions. It's huge. It's here and it's awesome. So just need to upgrade to the latest version of Gatsby v3 and give them a go. Like it's as simple as adding a source API hello-world.js and you can start querying and doing all sorts of fun stuff with it. Like I've spent many hours playing with it, and it's a great experience, and you'll love it.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I would have said the exact same thing. I don't like to use the word magical. I think it's like way overused and kind of like a buzzword. Just like blazing is kind of a buzzword, but functions really do. Like
they blaze in magic.
They're blazing fast and magic. No, they solve real world problems. They kind of like give control to the front end developer, and like I said earlier, it really does make you feel like a wizard. So definitely go check out the docs. Go experiment with a personal project or your company project. Go add some functions, and like again, we can't wait to see what you'll build. Yeah. So thanks all for listening. We hope you enjoyed
having you.
Hope you enjoyed Gatsby Camp. It's always a joy for us to see and hear all of the feedback, and so don't let this be the last time we talk. Can't wait to see what you'll build, and have a good rest of your day.
Yeah.
Bye.